The Annulus. Journey into the unknown. Through the vortex. Y. Seng-young. Copyright at 2020 Y. Seng-young. All rights reserved. The characters and events portrayed in this book are fictitious. Any similarity to real persons, living or dead, is coincidental and not intended by the author. No part of this book may be reproduced, or stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, or otherwise, without express written permission of the publisher. Chapter 9. The Defender. The Defender unit, shielded with depleted uranium plating, headed down the road towards the dome, trailing a long umbilical cable linked to a field sensor panel 100 yards from the nearest point of the dome. As it entered the perimeter of the dome, an aura of purple light lit out its outline. The Defender mini-tank, with all its sensors and active circuitry shielded by heavy depleted uranium plating shield, continued to transmit after it made it through the dome perimeter. The technicians in the warehouse monitoring station picked up the telemetry being transmitted through the heavily shielded umbilical cable connected to the field sensor panel, which then amplified the signals and forwarded the data via fiber optic cable to Professor Brown and Ken's equipment. The telemetry was also channeled to the command center and sent over for top priority processing at the NSA Supercomputing Center. The results were sent back to the Professor Brown and Dr. Harding on site. Images from inside the dome showed several of the light clouds had formed a circular formation and were emitting glowing blue energy that created the dome. It was a wondrous sight, and it held all the science team in awe. The light clouds could be seen tapping into the overhead high-voltage transmission lines and feeding the energy into the center of the circular formation. The whole center of the circular formation was pulsing with the same blue light as the walls of the dome. The light intensity was extremely high, but the outline of an annulus could be made out from the video feed. Mass was being attracted from the surrounding area into the dome and into the center of the formation. The mass then disappears through the annulus in the center of the formation. The special equipment designed by Ken and installed in the Defender unit measured the energy emissions from the circular formation. Together with the sensors on the other equipment from Professor Brown, the scientific team was receiving data they hope would help understand the modus operandi of the light clouds. Ken Harding and Professor Brown sat at the command desk looking at the analysis of the multi-frequency data being displayed on screens in different window views. The energy signature of these light cloud entities was of a frequency band that no terrestrial device would generate. The scientists ran the data through different analytical programs but could not get any terrestrial reference to evaluate these entities. And kept vigil through the night with Ken and Gerald, who went through the data and images. Because of her TV producer experience, something caught her attention. She stopped Ken, who was flipping through the images. "Ken, did you see that? Back up, there, freeze the image. Do you see what I see?" Ken and Professor Brown stared at what Anne's finger was pointing at. "Ron, you come and see this too. Can't the three of you see what that is?" "That is an X-ray image." Ken and Professor Brown both had a eureka moment, while Ron stared and scratched his scalp and then had his insight too. Professor Brown, of course, they emit energy in the X-ray frequency band, and this one cloud happened to be exposed to emissions of other light clouds nearby, and the camera captured its see-through image just like you do when you take a chest X-ray. "Ron, Gerald, look at this screen. It shows a complete light cloud and is in such good image focus. And there are no inside image, just a bright outline of the cloud edges. It seems that they have no skeletons, internal organs, or any internal structure. Ron, that certainly gives credence to the hypothesis that they are not alive." Ken looked at Anne and gave her a smile and thumbs up, "And I knew that you have a fresh look on anything that we may miss. But just because they do not have internal skeletal frame or organs do not necessarily mean they are not alive. Professor Brown, there can be life forms that do not conform to terrestrial carbon-based pattern. In this case, it may be possible that it does not need an internal skeleton but relies on an exoskeleton with some sort of fluid internals that metabolize energy to sustain life." "Ron, so what if Anne is wrong and these things are alive? What then?" "Ken, George, Ron, and alive or not, this light cloud could be from another dimension and controlled as a mechanism to do the mass transfer as we have witnessed. We are in the dark about these things as we have a total lack of reference to analyze the scanty data we have. The only way to understand what is going on inside the dome is to send the defender unit into the glowing circle. Professor Brown, in this instance, I agree with you as we just do not know what to make of these light clouds. Let's send the defender unit into the glowing circle. General Wayne received the call from Professor George Brown. General Wayne, we have analyzed all the telemetry that we can gather from the defender unit running around outside of the glowing circle. We have no terrestrial scientific reference to these entities. Our strong recommendation is to send the defender unit into that circle to gather more data. General Wayne, we may run the risk of losing the defender. Can we send something else instead? Ken, I am afraid that there is every chance the sensors and cameras will be destroyed the moment it crosses the glowing circle perimeter, but I guess we have no choice but to try, do we? General Wayne picked up the radio and patched the command to the controller of the defender unit. As a result, the operator steered the defender unit towards the glowing energy circle. The defender unit rolled past into the glowing circle. As the defender unit disappeared into the glowing circle, the data continued streaming into the field sensor panel through the shielded umbilical cable. Images from the camera flashed on the screens. It was a light show that just could not be interpreted from any terrestrial viewpoint. Suddenly all data and image transmission stopped. All hell broke loose as there was a drastic change of the dome and the light clouds. General Wayne, General Stanton. We have a code red here at Sun Valley. Yes, sir, the light clouds are on the breakout from the dome. What is your order, sir? General Stanton at the White House broke the news to the Defense Secretary, Homeland Security Secretary, and the Vice President. They quickly reassembled at the White House Situation Room to watch the live feed from the site. At Sun Valley, the situation was getting worse by the minute. The dome began to flicker and fade. The light clouds emerged from the dome. Colonel Rick Owens called General Wayne on the CTTS and reported, "Sir, the light clouds are out of the dome and they are on the loose." A hasty conference at the White House and the authorization was given to engage the light clouds. General Wayne gave the order to Colonel Owens to open fire to stop the light clouds. As he spoke, the video feed showed the light clouds coming at the Squadron No. 1 at the Sun Valley site. The tanks and APCs opened fire with everything they had, 50 caliber machine guns and 120 mm main cannon fire. The light clouds hit by the gun fire just flared briefly and absorbed everything the No. 1 Squadron threw at them. Captain Evans, the commander of No. 1st Squadron, radioed Colonel Owens, "Colonel Owens, sir, our fire has no effect on those things. They simply took everything we throw at them." Colonel Owens, "Captain Evans, get your squadron out of their way. We cannot stop them." Captain Evans gave the command over the CTTS and all the vehicles reversed away from the approach path of the light clouds. But the speed of the first light cloud was so great that it overtook the M1A2 tanks and APCs. With a flash of blazing blue light, the light clouds enveloped the lead vehicles. As the crews bailed out of the tank, it disappeared as the blue light blazed around it. One after another, the light clouds overtook all the vehicles of the No. 1 Squadron. Within a few minutes, the entire Squadron No. 1 had been swallowed up with no trace of their existence prior. Then the light clouds lit up in flashes of blue light and one by one faded away. Colonel Rick Owens called the other squadrons to confirm the readings from his instruments. "Squadron 1, Captain Evans, are you and your men all right?" Captain Evans' voice came back loud and clear over the CTTS, "Colonel Owens, sir, my men are all right, but the entire 1st Squadron has been absorbed by those things." Colonel Owens, "Captain Evans, do you see the dome? My instruments do not show any energy signature." Captain Evans, "Sir, the dome disappeared a few minutes after my last vehicle was absorbed. And the last light cloud also vanished a few seconds after the dome went." At the site, the data streams from all sensors and cameras stopped transmission. The team tried to interpret the data just before this transmission shut down to understand what was causing the change of events. General Wayne called the White House to update General Stanton and the President of the Sun Valley situation. President Walker engaged General Wayne on the video call. "General Wayne, Mr. President, just after the defender unit was sent into the circle of blue light, the breakout of the light clouds happened. I just don't know if this was coincidence or the cause. The first squadron fired weapons at the light clouds, but they took everything we threw at them with no visible effect. They retaliated on first squadron's vehicles and have absorbed them all. Then the dome and the light clouds vanished shortly afterwards. We have scrambled 2 fighter jet squadrons from Nellis Air Force Base. They should be overhead as we speak. In less than 5 minutes, the planes were over the site and radioed back their findings. President Walker: Yes, General, what is the latest status? General Wayne: Sir, the pilots report no sign of anything. All seem peaceful and quiet. There was silence from the White House end of the phone. President Walker then spoke: General, find out where they went. General Wayne: We will maintain 11th Armored Cavalry on watch. 1st Squadron will be re-equipped from the Tactical Reserve, so they will be at full strength. Jake laid on his bed and wondered about his predicament. He thought of his father and went through the options open to him. He realized that he was totally at the mercy of these aliens in this totally strange new world or universe that he has ended up in. He got more frustrated, the more he realized he could do nothing at all. There was a knock on the window, and as he looked out, he saw Zilia on the balcony outside of his window. He opened the sliding windows and Zilia climbed into his room. Zilia: Jake, I have come to help you. I heard my father have received instructions from the Supreme Council to continue sending our mass transfer bots to your universe's planet to search and retrieve atomic fission materials. My father explained to me how dangerous this was going to be for your world. And he felt he had to delay this mass transfer of atomic materials, but the collection of general mass had to continue somehow. He asked me to smuggle you into the loading bay to board a transfer bot to return you back to Earth. Jake: What are we waiting for? Let's go now. Zilia: It is not so simple. We must wait for a signal from my father, who must prepare one of the mass transfer bots specially. And I have to encase you in a medical isolation capsule before you start the journey. Jake: How do we prepare then? How long do I have to wait? Zilia: His instructions are to bring you to a certain building he indicated on this location beacon. Jake: Looks like I have no other choice but to trust your dad and wait for his instructions. Zilia: Meanwhile, Jake, we have to program the parameters of your return trip into the Dimensional Gate program.